Meathead James Vanderbeek filling in for Dan in the big chair. And this is pretty cool because we wanted to get a radio host on from Calgary because there's a big rivalry with Calgary and Edmonton. And so they say, we got this guy, Matt Rose, co-host of The Big Show with Rusic and Rose on Sportsnet 960 in Calgary, the radio home of the Calgary. I'm like, his name's Matty. It's George Rusic and Matty Rose. I go on weekly during the NFL season. No idea what he looked like, by the way, until this second right now. And he looks like he is straight out of Canadian radio host casting. It's unbelievable. Matty, it's Ross Tucker. Nice to see you, man. Thanks for coming on my show for once, I guess. Not really my show, but whatever.
Great. Yeah, well, for today, right? Yeah, that's how I feel when George leaves. It's all good. It's great to talk to you, man. It's been far too long. I'm excited for the NFL to come back so we can start having you on our show. But yeah, things are good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Are you in Calgary right now, or are you in Okotoks?
No, I'm in Calgary. No Atlas today. No down in Okotoks getting our pizza. Downtown Calgary's where you'll find me today. Trying to avoid all these Oilers jerseys that are on the sidewalk.
There? Seriously?
Heaps, tons. Because a lot of people will move from Edmonton down to Calgary, just a few hours down the road. I'm obviously biased, but personally, it's a better city. So people typically move from Edmonton down to Calgary and not the other way. So, yeah, we got a lot of Edmonton fans around here wearing their jerseys very proudly.
All right, so explain that. It's a couple hours away. Is it the only two cities in Alberta with NHL teams? So I would say they probably hate each other, but maybe not. You guys are just so not. Do you guys hate anybody?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we do. I think that there's a certain amount of like when someone new is coming into our country, you got to treat them with respect. And we have this Canadian identity that we have to uphold when we go abroad. But there are certainly very strong regional rivalries. People out here do not like Toronto and Eastern Canada a whole ton. And the Battle of Alberta is the biggest sporting event that we have in our entire province. The whole country or the whole province gets together for it when they play the 3 to 4 games they'll play in the regular season. When they played that playoff series a couple years ago, both cities were just nuts. Obviously, that one didn't end too well for the Calgary fans, but yeah, it's one of those things that kind of takes over our province for sure. Obviously, hockey's the big one up here, and those are the two biggest teams that you'll see in these two demographics.
All right, we're talking with Matty Rose, co-host of The Big Show with Rusic and Rose on Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. So you just got off the air, okay, a little bit ago, right? And I'm sure you took a lot of calls and you're talking with all the fans there, really Flames fans for the most part in Calgary. Are they rooting for or against the Oilers tonight?
Well, we were doing a little giveaway on the show today, and our text topic was if the Oilers win tonight, it'll be worse than blank. And we had all sorts of things. We had a lot of people call in about having to remarry their ex-wives. We had people talking about having their in-laws move in permanently. Like, this is not going to be good for Calgary fans because it's one thing to have the Oilers win it. It's another thing for the Flames to be in a little bit of disarray right now. So if the Oilers fans win, Flames fans don't really have anything to stand on. There's nothing good that we've done. They got a bad long-term signing after the Tkachuk trade, who's obviously the superstar of the Panthers now. And just the way that everything has kind of snowballed since then, bad signings, having to trade away their best goaltender just last week. So who knows what the season's going to be. And now you got the Oilers who might win the championship. They're just going to hold that over our heads. So that's going to be a little rough for sure.
But wait a minute, Matty, it's been 31 years since a Canadian team has won the Cup. Don't you guys want to bring the Cup home? Don't you have patriotism? And don't you want to see the Cup in Canada I mean, there's a lot of people that are alive that have never seen the Cup in Canada.
Myself included. And I would prefer it to be my team that does that. Because, like I said, I don't want to have to deal with Oilers fans being like, we were the first team to bring it back, and it was all us, and you can thank us. And, I don't want to deal with that all the time when these guys have their ring if it goes that way. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people in Calgary are nervous about. But I will say, like the family conversations have been interesting of that exact kind of dichotomy. Do you want the cup back in Canada, or do you want your biggest rival to be it? Like I've said before, if there's like Winnipeg or Ottawa that brings the cup back, like I'm like, whatever. I don't really. There's no rivalry there. But if it's Vancouver, there's a rivalry. If it's Edmonton, there's a rivalry. If it's Toronto, there's a rivalry. And I just don't want those fan bases to have that extra achievement to hold over the head of Flames fans if they do it. So that's what it all comes down to. But a lot of people, I will say, not a lot, but there are certain amount of people who, even though they're Flames fans, will be cheering for the cup to come back to Canada. It's tough for me because whenever the Flames get eliminated, I try and find the team in the States that has the most Canadians left on it, which typically there's one that has like 12 or 15. Unfortunately, this year, the Panthers, I think, only have 2 Canadians, and the Oilers have all Canadians, essentially. So that argument has also gone out the window for me. But some people are cheering for the Oilers. I just can't do it as someone who has grown up with the Flaming C on my chest.
So what do you think, like the rest of the country? What do you think, like the people in Vancouver or the people in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island? I'm trying to name as many random provinces. How about the people in Hamilton, Thunder Bay?
Up in
What about the
up in
people
the
skiing in
territories,
Whistler right now? What about all those people?
All those people, all the ones out east that you name, before Whistler, I think that a lot of people will be cheering for the Cup to come back to Canada. There's a lot of guys from Ontario on the team, so I'm sure there's a certain amount of that. I find that Leafs fans, once their team gets eliminated, they generally just check out of everything else, anyways. So that would be one thing that I'm kind of thinking with that over there. But the Vancouver fans are like, if you think Flames fans are down bad, the Vancouver fans are way worse because they actually lost to the Oilers as part of this run, and they didn't have their best goalie. So they're saying to themselves, if we had our best goalie, like they have that injury excuse, right? If we had our best goalie, we could have been there. We could have beat the Oilers. We would have definitely beat the Panthers. And now they're watching the Oilers win it. So that's another rivalry. Like BC and Alberta, there's certainly different points of view that you'll see between those two provinces. So there's a rivalry there as well. And when Vancouver lost to Edmonton, that was big. But I think that even Vancouver fans and everyone out in BC is probably having a pretty hard time coming to terms with how this has changed. Like they were up 3-0 too. This was supposed to be over like a week ago. Like we're not supposed to be here. This is supposed to happen. But lo and behold, you got the best player on the planet, and eventually he can go video game mode, and here's where you end up.
It's so funny you just said that, Maddie, because I just had Jason Demers from NHL Network on, and he said not only is Connor McDavid the best player in the world right now, he thinks he might be the best player ever. Is that just from a former player's perspective, or is that how fans are thinking, or is that just ridiculous since he hasn't won a cup yet?
It kind of depends. In my opinion, it depends on how you want to look at the best player ever. Obviously, you have to win a Stanley Cup to be the best player ever. Gretzky had a handful of them, but it's very different now. Like the way that Connor has been able to dominate this league, where even Sidney Crosby wasn't at this level for being kind of head and shoulders ahead of everybody else. It's fascinating to watch. Like I didn't really get to see Gretzky in his prime. I was like just single year age when he was retiring from the NHL. So there's obviously the era adjustments. Nowadays you have the salary cap, so teams aren't nearly as loaded as they could be back in the day. Listen, I certainly think he's in the conversation. The way that he's produced points, the way he has broken Gretzky's records as he's kind of gone throughout the first half of his career here. The only thing he's been missing is the Stanley Cups. And a run like this, especially if they do end up pushing this thing over the edge, this is the type of thing where you start to wonder if it's almost like a dam that breaks. And now Connor is going to constantly be back in the cup final, irrelevant of what his team around him is. Because I really didn't think this blue line was going to be good enough to get the Oilers to the Stanley Cup final. I thought that they were too turnover prone, thought they made bad decisions under pressure. I didn't think they defended their netminder well enough. And sure enough, they've all found a way to figure it out. And it's all based on, for me, the fact that a lot of these players believe that if they make a mistake, Connor can go out and fix that and get them right back into a game, which allows them to play a little bit freer, maybe. And to have that effect on everybody around you is something pretty special and pretty important. It helps that he's got Leon Draisaitl, who's another top 10 player. But Gretzky also had top 10 players around him his entire career. By the time Connor's done, he very well could be named the best player, but it's so hard adjusting eras. And without the Stanley Cups, I just find it hard to say that for Connor right now.
Matty, really appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Good to see you and talk with you.
It's been a pleasure, man. We'll see you soon. Hopefully chat soon. I know camps are underway for the NFL and all that stuff. So enjoy Game 7 tonight and the start of everything else we got. I guess the Olympics, although we're going to be cheering for different teams there. But that's fine.
There he is, Matty Rose, co-host of The Big Show with Rusic and Rose on Sportsnet 960 in Calgary, the radio home of the Calgary Flames.